Welcome, Greek University Nation, to episode number 634 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, the best speakers in the business are the ones who are vulnerable up on stage and also great storytellers. Our next guest totally understands this concept very well, and she will help you to get heard next. Marcy Barbaro is a bold, heart-led speaker, writer, and coach who believes your story could change or even save a life. Hers began to change the day she stopped waiting to feel ready and started writing her truth. The result was Beautiful Humans, There's Nothing Wrong with You, a moving, humorous, and soul-stirring collection that's touched thousands of readers. Marcy's most requested talks include Your Story Could Save Someone's Life and What Would You Say If Tomorrow Was Your Last Chance? These challenge audiences to stop holding back and to start using their words to heal, connect, and leave a legacy. Very fitting, by the way, on Martin Luther King Day. With a blend of emotional honesty, humor, and real world insight, she empowers aspiring authors, leaders, creatives, and everyday humans to write and speak with urgency and heart. Her background as a magazine editor, yoga instructor, and co founder of Working Writers Co. gives her a unique, grounding perspective on how writing becomes a tool for transformation, not just for readers, but for the writer themselves. Marcy lives in Midland, Ontario, where she hikes, lifts weights, and shares wisdom and laughs with her beloved Chihuahua, Wheezy. She brings every audience she meets a powerful message. You don't have to be perfect to be heard. You just have to be willing to be real. Welcome to the show, Marcy.
Well, thank you so much. I love your enthusiasm. First thing in the morning. Good for
First
you.
thing in the morning. This is the right way to start the day, by the way. We can meet every single morning. We'll get each other pumped up for the day ahead, and we'll have great days. What do you say?
I'm down for it. Absolutely.
All right. Now, you work with very accomplished leaders who often will say that, is my story really worth telling? So, why do so many high impact people all over the world struggle to see their value in their own story?
Well, in my experience, there's one of two things happening here. Some leaders don't know how they do what they do. It's just comes so naturally to them. And trust me, those are the hardest authors to work with because you're trying to pull it out and they're like, I don't know, I just do it. I just do it. I just do it. And they're so aligned with their purpose, so filled with ease that they don't have to give it much thought. But for the rest of us, what ends up happening is the person that you are today and the person that I am today. There's a whole messy story that went on before we got here. And I have some secrets. I have some failures. Maybe I've been fired in a job. Maybe I failed miserably at something. And so I want to give you the pretty and polished version of my story only. Mm. I don't really want to get into the weeds. I don't want to be vulnerable. And so this imposter syndrome comes up for everyone until you realize that probably the number one currency valued in the world today is authenticity.
That's so well said. And it's almost counterintuitive, right? Many of us, including myself, by the way, feel that we have to show our best selves all the time. But the reality is, once I made that conscious switch and I said, wow, I've certainly failed at things. I know you failed at things too. And that's when you learn the biggest lessons in life. And so if you can be vulnerable up there, either on stage or in your writing, and you share that, that's when the audience hooks into your story. It's in those moments of vulnerability, but it's almost counterintuitive to what we think people want to see from us.
I know, exactly. And I think it's so important for young people who are just starting out. And they're starting to put a whole bunch of accomplishments into their backpack, right? Like, oh, I did that and I passed that and I've got this degree. My daughter's working on her second degree and she's becoming bulletproof, like I got this life thing figured out. And of course, you and I, with our hindsight, are like, hey, guess what? You're going to be brought to your knees a few times in life,
Sure.
and so settle down, right? And this isn't a positive outlook or a negative outlook. It's just like this is the experience of being human.
Yeah,
Now,
100%.
so just relax, enjoy the ride.
Yeah, it's so important for young people to know. I think they're so afraid of failure. That's the other thing. And we have to get them over that because that's where the big lessons will lie for them. So, if college students, let's assume that they have to write a really big paper. I know I had a ton of papers that I had to do for my last degree, but they're suffering from writer's block. What do you suggest the college students should do in that scenario?
They got to move away from their computer. They got to close down their computer. They got to get into their bodies. So it's as simple as a dance party in your bedroom, crank the music and dance it out. And I'm saying, like, take 20 minutes and sweat, like, really do it. Hydrate. And just because every time you sit down to write, you have a buddy, and that is your subconscious mind. So if you're attending lectures, if you're reading, if you're discussing the material, and let's say you're not, because sometimes you have such a heavy course load, you completely ignore something. But I guarantee, and then you got to sit down and write the paper, and you feel like you're starting from scratch. I guarantee you, there is some wisdom in your body, in your subconscious mind. And you are so uptight at that moment that you're blocked, that you are ignoring every impulse that you have. And so I'm going to say you must go for a hike, go for a run. And if you don't have a lot of time, do your dance party in your bedroom. Make sure you drink lots of water and then sit back down. And I guarantee something is going to come out.
Yeah, those ideas are in there. And it always, for me, it happens at the weirdest times when I'm taking a shower or when I'm going for a run. Like this idea pops into my head. And
Yep.
so I feel like we're very like over programmed today. We constantly have our phones, we're constantly doom scrolling. It's
Yeah.
okay to have some time alone with your thoughts. This is
Yeah.
okay. And we need to do more of that, not less of that. The fraternities and sororities that we work with on today's college campuses, they're often trying to sell themselves during recruitment. I just heard from a national fraternity today that's really struggling with recruitment and they want to figure out a way forward. So, how does storytelling shift the mindset from selling, let's say, fraternity or sorority, to attracting others into the fraternity or sorority?
Yeah, storytelling is powerful. First of all, we have such a sophisticated audience that everyone knows when they're being sold to now, right? So as soon as there's a sales pitch, we all tune out. We're all repelled by it. But story allows us to be drawn in without really knowing. So really knowing that it's happening, but it's comfortable and interesting. I have a friend's daughter, took her to the big city. Here's where I went to school. You're gonna love it. And her daughter, right there, one of the busiest streets, intersections downtown Toronto, said, I want to go to a small university. I hate all this noise.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so I think I don't want to keep coming back to this, authenticity thing, but when someone tells their story and someone else listens, there's something in the brain that happens called neural coupling. A neural coupling is when your brain synchronizes with my brain, and all of a sudden I have enhanced comprehension and I have a heart connection. I could even have heart coherence with a story. So, if we say to a kid who's struggling, like, come on, believe in yourself, it's kind of like empty words. But if we say to a kid, like, remember the very first time, Michael, that you watched Rocky, the original? I'm not talking about any of the others, like pounding the sides of beef and putting the raw eggs in the blender and running up those steps in his old gray sweats. And he couldn't really put sentences together. And then when he won, we're all in tears. Like we never forgot that moment. right? That's why the first Rocky, like, so story just gets into your heart, into your mind, and there's a flood of, you know, oxytocin in the body with story. Whereas selling shuts us down and repels us, story draws us in. And so I think your university, whose recruitment is down, is just remember that the people that go there and love it, they have found something. And other people are looking for that something. So your job is to just show what that something is and attract those students in, as opposed to trying to manufacture something. Because when the alignment is real in the heart, my daughter found a small university.
Hmm.
She's in a small university town and she couldn't be happier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think that's something, for fraternities and sororities, other student organizations, is really belonging. I mean, that's really what we all want to feel. We
Yep.
have that innate sense within us that we want to belong so desperately, especially if you think back to when you were a young college student. You just want to belong. You just want a family. You want friends. You want that sense of love and belonging. I mean, it's Maslow's hierarchy. I mean, this is basic blocking and tackling, right? So, what
Yeah.
happens, in your opinion, when an organization focuses only on surface level achievements? Let's say their GPA, their philanthropy totals, their social events, instead of the deeper why behind their culture.
Well, I think what we're doing is we're sending a message to the student that you are now only your GPA, and
Hmm.
you are now only the social events, and you are now only the volunteer hours that you put in. And do you want to reduce a young person to figures, or do you want to see the whole person? Right? Like, don't send that dangerous message. Not only that, but we know that mental health struggles are real. Anxiety and depression are off the charts for our young people. And I understand we have to have measuring tools, right? And that's part of real life. I get it. But what if instead we were showing the experience of what you can feel? In my own university experience, I went to a small little, sort of left wing university in Montreal, and all of my housemates were at McGill. So McGill is sort of our version of an Ivy League school in the East Coast, at Yale, like a Yale. And their lecture halls were 500 students, and they only dealt with the TA. My university building was so broken you couldn't use the elevator, but I always had the PhD guy or gal 5 feet away from me. And these PhD professors all opened their houses at some point during the year and threw some kind of party, whether it was a potluck or they had a guest speaker in or they showed a film, and so, like, let's get real. Like, let's get real. What do you really have to offer? I'd love to see what the marketing would look like.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting. And it's interesting the different experiences you have at a small institution versus a large institution. And I agree with you. I think access to real professors with their PhD, that certainly is a telling sign for what kind of an experience you're going to have on that campus. There's a lot of organizations out there, whether we're talking about companies or we're talking about student-led organizations that want to attract more values aligned members or employees. Where do you think these organizations should start? Is it their history? Is it their current members? Or is it the problem that they're trying to solve?
Well, I would say all three. I think I would do some really candid interviews.
Mm.
I would send something out it's all through social media. Send us a 30-second clip or a 1 minute or a 2 minute clip of your experience, good, bad, and ugly, and send them in and start going through it. Right? Like, do women not feel safe on your campus? Or is there enough access to emergency student loans for kids who are feeling the pinch? These types of things. Like, let's get real. Are there places in nature when you can get out of the building and just, breathe some fresh air when you need to? Yeah. And do you feel like you have authentic advisors, access to authentic advisors when you need them. So I would prompt a list of questions, and then I would design a social media campaign called like Let's Get Real, or What's the Real Experience, and then learn from it and improve upon it. And if you wanted to create a campaign that has those real, you'd need to do a media release and all those good things, and then get some of those interviews up and out.
I love that idea for real interviews. I think that storytelling from real students can really touch people and impact them to actually make some action as a result versus, let's say, some static, I don't know, social media graphic that maybe doesn't really go nearly as far. And you emphasize all the time authentic storytelling, and you just brought up a really interesting issue. You're talking about student safety. Do women feel safe on our college campus? So, how can an organization balance honesty, right? We have a problem with safety on our campus, with the fear of being judged or misunderstood, especially in a campus environment where reputation feels so fragile?
Oh gosh, why are leaders always the first people to speak? That's what leadership is. So if you had an issue with female safety on your campus, I would start by saying, we have had an issue with female safety on our campus, and here's what we've put in place. As a woman, women, we know this. We're always just looking for safety, right? And so is it going to be, peer, peer female, older female peer guides? Is it going to be an organization? Is it going to be anonymous tip line? Is it going to be more security? What's it going to be? I don't know. You know what? I'm sort of really out of my depth talking about this. I'm just saying in general, but don't hide. I understand there's a reputation at stake, but one story that gets out of a bad incident, and that reputation is gone in a puff of smoke.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
So
very
why
true.
risk it? Why risk it? And just look the problems head on and communicate. You know, I know you know this, Michael. This generation that is in college right now is probably one of the most sophisticated generations. You cannot pull the wool over anyone's eyes.
No,
So much access. I mean, these people have grown up with the internet. They don't know a day of their lives without the internet, not like you and me. We used to ride our bikes around and not even know what time it was half the time, right?
that's
No
absolutely
access
true.
to us, right? But that generation hasn't known a moment of their lives without Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So fooling around.
Yeah, and you can ruin that reputation, like you said, in a heartbeat. When you and I were in college, we didn't have cameras in our pocket and video cameras in our pocket that we can instantly pull out, and then that story goes around the world within about 10 seconds. But today, it's a different story, and so we have to know, that that is an issue, and we have to be very conscious about what we do and what we say and just tackle some of those issues, like you said, head on. I think is really important. Um, the other thing I think about when we talk about fraternities and sororities, certainly a lot of people from the outside might look at that organization and say that's a very exclusive organization and they're keeping people out. So, how do these organizations find their target audience in that environment? How can fraternities and sororities define who they are for without sounding like they are so exclusive or unwelcoming to the entire campus?
Well, I mean, if I really want to ride my bike across Canada, I'm not going to sign up for a book club,
Mhm.
right? So like say what it is. Just say what it is, what you can expect. Talk about what the commitment is, time wise, financially, energetically. Just talk about what is expected as a sorority or fraternity member and what values you embody. And you really have to embody those values, right? So if it is a safe place for your LGBTQT, transgender population, if it is safe, then it damn well better be. but if that's not something that is going to work with your current environment, there's some old ideas at work that have not yet been fleshed out in this generation, then don't advertise that you are a safe place for that, right? So I think it takes a lot of courage, right? I always say abandon your bravado for your brave.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is don't, don't pretend you're something that you're not,
Yeah.
right? So don't say what you're not, just say what you are, right? So if you're a bike club and we meet every Saturday morning, we ride 50K and then we go for lunch and we ride 50K back. Good. Put that in the brochure,
Yep.
right? But don't tell me that we're also all going to ride with our guitars on our back and we're going to busk and raise money for the homeless if
Right.
we're not going to do it, right? So just give really honest messaging about what you are and don't put in what you're not
Yeah.
because people can read between the lines and they're always going to go for what feels right.
You're 100% right. We have to do what we say we are going to do. If you don't, then the media and everybody else on campus is going to call you out for not doing what you said you were going to do.
It's
It's
really
it's
simple,
really
really.
simple, right? I mean, if you say that you're for academics and you say that you're for brotherhood and sisterhood and you say that you are about leadership and that you care for your members, then let's go out and do those things. But if you don't, they're going to call you out and say you are a liar, you are a con artist, you are a hypocrite, right? So you
That's right.
have to do what you say you're going to do. It's so simple, but yet that concept just escapes so many leaders today. What advice would you give to those graduating seniors who want to leave behind more than just a position title that they were president of their organization, but instead a story that future members can carry forward?
Well, I think they need to get a little bit raw and talk about how that experience changed them. So, we all grow. We put ourselves in an organization like that for growth. You know, some people have a horrible high school experience and they really want to turn the page when they get to college and be something a little bit different than what they were. Maybe they were shy, maybe whatever. So, talk about where you were and talk about where you ended up, but in a tangible way. Don't do big sweeping statements. Just talk about what really happened for you. Stories are about transformation, right? That's the hero's journey, right? I started here and then I went on a quest and I slayed dragons and I got the golden chalice and I kissed the guy, whatever it was, and now I'm here and I'm changed. I'm forever changed and I cannot go back to who I was. Just tell that story.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I hope that all the graduating seniors, obviously, we're now in the spring semester. Many of them are going to be graduating come May, June timeframe. So now's a great time to get your seniors on the agenda and have them tell that story. Have them tell the story of where they started in college and where they are today and how the organization got them there. That is going to be a very inspirational message for your new members. That's also going to be a very inspirational message for all the other students on campus that might want to join that organization to go through a similar transformation in their own lives. Now, if a chapter is listening today and they wanted to start telling a more authentic story immediately about their organization, what is a simple exercise they could do at their next meeting in order to get that?
Okay, this is going to make you laugh, but we are going to pair up into partners, not with your best buddy, with someone that you don't know. And you are going to sit on the floor back to back. So you are leaning on that other person and they are leaning on you. Play some quiet music and sit and breathe for 5 minutes. Now, what ends up happening is it's remarkable. The breathing pattern synchronizes, and a stranger now becomes someone that you feel you know. You haven't touched anywhere else, just your shoulder blades are touching the back of your shoulders. Small of your back won't even touch because of the natural arch of the spine. And you relax, your shoulders come down. No talking, just breathing. And now start your meeting.
Hmm.
This is a really powerful exercise. And not a lot of people have the courage to do it. Not a lot of people can be quiet long enough to do it. But I'm telling you, if you want to create real change, if you want to move through a real obstacle, then sit down back to back with someone and breathe, leaning on them.
Wow.
It is, it's intimate and private simultaneously. But you also, as you relax, you'll put your weight against that person and they put their weight against you, and you literally have each other's back. And after that experience is over, you don't even have to talk about it. If you wanted to as a group, you could. You could talk about what you were feeling and how much you hated it and how embarrassed you were in the beginning, if you wanted to. And then you could talk about how, oh my gosh, I feel like I know Michael now. Like he's my friend.
Yeah.
And then start your meeting and your discussion. And it just shifts the energy. See, what it does is it takes you out of the ego space and reminds you that we're all just humans and none of us can last longer than 2 minutes without our breath, right? So it just just relax and let go, and then remember we're all just human beings trying to get through this life the best we can, and start from there.
I love that. It really does take us out of that ego space. I feel like every fraternity or sorority meeting that I've ever been a part of has always been the members sitting in the audience, and then you have the leaders up front, and they're facing each other, right? And it's always about ego. It's always about, well, the president is sitting in the front center of the room,
Posture
facing
is
the
all
entire
wrong.
organization, right?
Yeah.
It's every single meeting I've ever been in. But what's to say that we can't all sit in a circle, right? With our leaders randomly sprinkled into the circle. What's to say we can't lean on each other with our shoulder blades back to back and synchronize our breathing for a minute before we start the meeting? Like, don't be afraid to change things up if they're not working for you. And I think
Yeah.
you offer an excellent suggestion. I really do like that quite a
If
bit.
anybody you know, you ever hear of anybody doing this, you got to let me know.
I will.
But it goes back to that old saying, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got.
Mm.
Right. So it takes leaders and courage to make change.
Yeah, I love it. Now, we've written a ton of books here at Greek University. I mean, I can show you our full collection of books over here, but I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on.
Look at
And
that.
yeah, and we love writing. I mean, one of the other things that we created recently was our Substack as well, which is great because we get to write really on a daily basis, which I think is so great in order to attract your audience. So if college students have an idea, for a book that they want to write, because I think there's a book in everybody.
Mhm.
Where do they begin in this process of writing a book?
Well, don't start with chapter one. Don't put chapter one on the page. That's the quickest way to shut it down. I always tell writers to have two documents going simultaneously. One is your document that you're writing in. Another one, you could call it the sandbox. You could call it gems. You could call it, anything you want. But that is your document where you throw stuff that you're not really sure if it fits into the main document, but it's good ideas. Don't delete anything ever. We think that as humans, we live chronologically because we have birthdays, but we don't live chronologically. An apple pie will take you back to your grandmother's house. A piece of music will remind you of a Christmas memory, right? So we don't live chronologically. We live in multiple times all at once. So dive into the place of least resistance. Okay, so write about whatever comes easiest. Okay. And then write some more and write some more. And then eventually it's going to be time to create an outline. You're like, oh, here's what I'm writing about. Here's what's important to me. Here's what's on my heart. Here's what I want to say. Great. Go ahead now, create an outline if you want. And now start writing a little more intentionally. But don't think you have to do the outline first. Don't think you have to have the whole book idea, the title, everything all figured out. Just follow the path of least resistance.
Great advice. Really, really sage advice. I love it. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you to share their authentic story, where should they go in order to connect with you, Marcy?
Well, you know what? You can find me on our Instagram, Working Writers Co. I'm actually the one who answers the messages. I love Instagram. I know people have moved to other platforms. I'm really happy there. But we also have a website, workingwritersco.com. And you can join our writing community, which is 2 meetings a week. And you can even get to share your writing, what you're working on. And that's our Creating Community program, which I think would probably be a good fit for college students, or anyone just dipping their toe in. We also offer a bunch of free stuff too. Like tonight, we have a speaker who's going to talk about how you organize your intellectual property for film or television. And so he's a guest speaker tonight, Bill Herndon. So there's lots of resources. But, we also aren't afraid to volunteer a bit of our time and hop on a call with a young writer who hasn't quite figured out what they're doing. And so 20, 30 minutes here and there, more than happy to do it because, like you, we believe everyone has a story. And books are wonderful, but it's really the transformation that happens in the individual during the time that they're writing. It is the most exciting thing. It is why I do what I do, to see how people get from here to there, how they grow, and how they have to, sort of get really honest with themselves, and figure out why they are the way they are. And so we're always happy. And when I say we, I'm talking about my business partner, Alex Morin, and I, we're always happy to help young writers out too and just bounce ideas around.
Man, I love that. That is really great. I love what you and your partner are busy doing. Definitely go and check out the website. It's workingwritersco.com, and go on to Instagram and go and follow Marcy and her company today on Instagram at Working Writers Co. Go and follow them. And I want you to send a message to Marcy. Let them know that you heard about Marcy on the Fraternity Foodie podcast and ask whatever question you like. I promise you that Marcy is going to respond to you because she loves getting these questions. Okay. So definitely do that. And tonight, if you're free, go and check out that speaker as well. I mean, you got something to do tonight. I think that's fantastic. So thank you so much, Marcy, for sharing all of these wonderful resources today.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And you're doing a lot of really good work here, Michael, helping young folks out to organize their ideas. That's basically what you're doing. We all have so many thoughts. And when we have a leader who helps us to organize our ideas without judgment, that is so valuable.
Yes, totally agreed, and a wonderful place to leave this interview today. Thank you, Marcy, for sharing your story today. And to our listeners, if you learned something today with Marcy, I want you to share this episode with your fraternity or sorority chapter, maybe in a group chat, or share it on social media, because you never know who needs to hear this message today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.